Everyone tells you to just get rid of it, but that is exactly why you feel like you are losing your mind every time you pick up a heavy black trash bag. You have been told 1,000 times that your environment reflects your mind, and that by clearing your shelves, you will finally clear your head. Yet, when you stand in the middle of that room, looking at the piles of paper, the half-broken electronics, and the clothes you haven't touched since the Obama administration, you don't feel a sense of potential freedom. You feel a physical ache in your chest that most people will never understand. This is not about being messy, and it is not about being lazy. If you are the kind of person who feels a surge of genuine grief when you think about discarding a greeting card from a person you don't even talk to anymore, then this is going to feel uncomfortable. You are part of a specific group of people who possess a psychological trait that turns inanimate objects into horcruxes. You aren't keeping things because you might need them one day. You are keeping them because throwing them away feels like an act of betrayal. This is the hidden architecture of the emotional guardian. You probably never say this out loud, but you feel like the objects in your house are watching you. You look at a worn-out pair of sneakers and you don't see trash. You see the 300 miles they walked with you through a city where you were lonely. You see the version of yourself that wore those shoes. And you feel like if you drop them into a bin, that version of you will officially cease to exist. This hits harder if you grew up in a house where things were constantly disappearing, or where your sense of stability was tied to the physical world because the emotional world was too chaotic to trust. For you, the act of cleaning isn't a chore. It is a series of high-stakes moral decisions. Every item is a witness to your life, and to discard a witness is to leave yourself unprotected. We call this the Sentinel Response. It is a deep-seated neurological mechanism that misidentifies physical clutter as a vital survival resource. And until you understand why your brain is doing this, no amount of organization tips will ever stick. Think about the last time you tried to clean out a junk drawer. You found a dead battery, a rubber band, and a souvenir keychain from a vacation you barely remember. For most people, those 3 items are gone in seconds. But for you, the process is different. You hold the keychain, and your brain begins to perform a frantic simulation of the future. You imagine the one specific scenario 10 years from now, where that keychain might be the only thing that connects you back to a feeling of youth. You feel a spike of cortisol. Your heart rate actually increases. This is a pattern interrupt that most people miss. You aren't deciding whether to keep an object. You are deciding whether to kill a memory. This is the identity lock in action. You have outsourced your sense of self to the physical matter surrounding you. If the room is full, you are full. If the room is empty, you are terrified that you might be empty too. Does it feel like the object is actually suffering when you put it in the bin? Or do you find yourself apologizing to inanimate things as if they have feelings that you might hurt? The reason you cannot let go is not what you think. It is not because you are a pack rat or because you lack discipline. It is because you are suffering from a phenomenon known as emotional porosity. Your boundaries between your internal self and the external world are thin. Most people see a clear line where they end and the table begins. For you, the things you own are an extension of your nervous system. When someone moves something in your house without asking, it doesn't just feel annoying. It feels like a violation of your physical body. This level of sensitivity is often a defense mechanism developed in early childhood. If you were raised by parents who were emotionally inconsistent, or if you experienced a period of intense scarcity, your brain learned that people are unreliable, but things are constant. A toy doesn't leave you. A book doesn't stop loving you because you made a mistake. Objects are the only things that stayed when everything else was shifting. This is why your closet is overflowing. It is not a collection of clothes. It is a fortress built of fabric, designed to keep the void at bay. There is a specific kind of exhaustion that comes with this. It is the weight of being the sole custodian of 1,000 tiny histories. You feel responsible for the life of a chipped coffee mug. You worry that if you throw away the manual for a microwave you no longer own, you are failing some invisible test of preparedness. This is the hidden hierarchy of the over-responsible. You have taken on the burden of the physical world because you feel like if you don't keep track of everything, no one will. This leads to a state of permanent low-grade decision fatigue. Your brain is constantly scanning your environment, trying to categorize and protect every single item. This is why you feel so tired even when you haven't done anything. Your nervous system is working overtime to manage a landscape of objects that it perceives as living entities. You are living in a crowded room, but you are also living in a crowded mind, and the two are feeding each other in a feedback loop that feels impossible to break. We need to talk about the concept of the hypothetical self. This is the version of you that lives in the things you don't use. It is the person who is going to learn to play the guitar sitting in the corner. It is the person who is going to wear those 2 sizes too small jeans once they finally get their life together. It is the person who is going to use those craft supplies to become an artist. Every time you look at these things, you aren't seeing clutter. You are seeing a cemetery of unfulfilled potential. To throw them away is to admit that those versions of you are never coming. It is a confrontation with your own mortality and your own limitations. This is the moment where most people drop off. They would rather live in a house full of guilt than a house that tells them the truth about who they actually are today. You are holding on to the ghost of a person you thought you would be, and that ghost is taking up all the space where the real you is supposed to breathe. Have you ever hidden a purchase or a pile of things from someone you love because you couldn't explain why you needed to keep it and you didn't want to see the judgment in their eyes? This brings us to the mid-video realization that changes everything. You aren't actually afraid of losing the object. You are afraid of the silence that comes after the object is gone. If you cleared every surface in your home today, you would be left with a terrifying amount of space. For someone with your psychological profile, space is not an opportunity. Space is a vacuum. It is a hole that invites the very thoughts you have been using the clutter to drown out. The piles of mail and the stacks of books act as a form of acoustic foam for the soul. They dampen the echoes of your own anxiety. When you are surrounded by things, you are never truly alone. The clutter is a crowd. It is a noisy, chaotic, dysfunctional family that you have curated to make sure you never have to sit in a room with just yourself and your regrets. This is the trauma repetition of the cluttered heart. You are recreating a feeling of being overwhelmed because being overwhelmed is safer than being empty. The cost of this is higher than you realize. It is not just about the square footage or the fire hazard. The real cost is the fragmentation of your attention. Every object in your field of vision is a silent demand for your energy. The half-finished project on the table is whispering that you are a failure. The unread books on the shelf are whispering that you are falling behind. The old photos are whispering that your best days are behind you. You are living in a museum of your own shame. Your brain cannot enter a state of deep focus or deep rest because it is constantly being nagged by 1,000 plastic and paper voices. This is why you feel a sense of relief when you go to a hotel or a minimalist space. But the moment you return home, the heaviness settles back into your bones. You have built a cage out of memories, and you are the only one with the key. Yet you find yourself unable to turn the lock because you have forgotten which part of the cage is the wall and which part is you. There is a specific neurological glitch called the endowment effect that hits you harder than most. It is the tendency to overvalue something simply because you own it. Studies show that when people are given a mug and then asked to sell it, they demand a price much higher than someone is willing to pay to buy it. But for the emotional guardian, this effect is amplified by a factor of 10. To you, the mug isn't just a mug. It is a piece of your timeline. You are not calculating the market value. You are calculating the soul value. This makes traditional advice, like asking if an item sparks joy, completely useless. Of course it doesn't spark joy. It sparks a complex web of obligation, fear, and nostalgia. It sparks a sense of duty. You feel like you owe it to the object to keep it because it has survived this long. You are the witness, and the witness cannot look away. This pattern often traces back to a moment in your past where you felt a profound loss of control. Maybe it was a divorce, a sudden move, or the death of a grandparent whose belongings were cleared out in a single weekend. Your brain made a vow in that moment that it would never let go of anything ever again. It decided that the only way to prevent the pain of loss was to become a hoarder of moments. But matter is not a memory. A memory is a neural pathway. An object is just atoms arranged in a way that will eventually decay. By trying to save the atoms, you are actually strangling the memory. You are burying the truly important things under a mountain of the trivial. When everything is sacred, nothing is sacred. When every receipt is a treasure, the actual treasures are lost in the noise. You are so busy protecting the past that you have no room to host the present. Imagine walking into your kitchen and opening a cabinet. Inside there are 3 sets of mismatched dishes. You use the same 4 plates every day, but you cannot bring yourself to donate the others because they belong to an aunt you loved or because you spent money on them during a time when money was tight. You feel the weight of those plates every time you reach for a glass. They are a physical pressure on your psyche. This is the real-life immersion of the emotional anchor. You are literally being weighed down by the ghost of a dinner party that happened 15 years ago. This is not about the plates. This is about your inability to believe that you will be okay if you don't have a backup plan for your backup plan. You are living in a state of permanent emergency, and the clutter is your survival kit. But you are not in the woods. You are in your house, and the survival kit is what is preventing you from actually living. The psychological twist here is that your clutter is actually a form of perfectionism. You are so afraid of making the wrong decision about an object that you decide not to decide at all. A decision not to act is still a decision. It is a decision to stay stuck. It is a decision to keep the shame alive. You tell yourself you will deal with it when you have more time or when you feel more emotional strength. But that day never comes because the clutter itself is what is draining your time and your strength. It is a self-sustaining engine of paralysis. You are waiting for a version of yourself that is brave enough to let go, while the clutter is actively making you feel more cowardly every single day. This is the ego defense of the procrastinator. If I don't clean it, I don't have to face the feelings that come with it. If you could press a button and everything in your house that you haven't used in a year would simply vanish without you having to touch it or see it go, would you feel a sense of relief or a sense of absolute panic? The second half of this experience is the realization that your identity is not as fragile as you think. You have spent years believing that you are the sum of your possessions. You have believed that if the things go away, you will become a blank slate. But the truth is the opposite. The things are the static that is preventing you from hearing your own voice. The more space you clear, the more clearly you can hear who you actually are. This is the quiet opening that no one tells you about. It is not a lesson, and it is not a set of instructions. It is a shift in perspective. You are not a container for things. You are a person who experiences things. The experience stays even when the thing is gone. The vacation doesn't disappear when the keychain goes in the trash. The love for your aunt doesn't diminish when the plates are donated. The version of you that was young and hopeful is still inside you. It doesn't need sneakers to stay alive. You have been acting as a graveyard keeper for the person you used to be. You have been tending to the tombs of old hobbies, old relationships, and old versions of your body. It is an honorable job, but it is a lonely one, and it is a job that you were never actually hired for. You volunteered for it because you were afraid of the unknown. But the unknown is where your future is. You cannot walk into a new life if your hands are full of the old one. You cannot embrace someone new if you are still clutching a sweater from an ex because it still smells like 2012. You are choosing the comfort of the familiar burden over the uncertainty of freedom. This is the hardest truth to face. The clutter is a choice. It is a choice you make every morning when you walk past the pile and look away. It is a choice to prioritize the past over the person you are becoming. As you sit here now, you can probably feel the items in your room calling out to you. You can feel the pull of that one drawer or that one box in the garage. It feels like it has a gravity of its own. That gravity is not coming from the wood or the metal or the paper. It is coming from the parts of your soul that you have trapped inside those objects. You are the one giving them power. You are the one feeding them your energy. The question is not how to get rid of the stuff. The question is why you are so afraid of what you will find in the empty spaces. What is the one thing you are most afraid of forgetting if you finally let the physical world go? And are you keeping all of this because you want to remember your life, or because you are terrified that your life didn't actually happen?